The Zareth Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their ships numbered in the millions. Their armies stretched across 100,000 worlds. When the High Council of the Zareth gathered in their crystal palace above the throne world, they spoke of only one thing: the humans. "They are weak," said High Commander Vex, his 4 arms crossed over his armored chest. "Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. They will fall like all the others." The other commanders nodded. They had conquered 1,000 species. The Koreth with their acid blood, the Mentari with their psychic powers, the silicon-based Crystori who could survive in the vacuum of space. All had fallen before the might of the Zareth Empire. But Emperor Thax did not nod. He sat upon his throne of black metal and watched the holographic display before him. It showed a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system. Earth, the humans called it. "I have studied these humans," the Emperor said, his voice deep and slow. "They are not like the others. They do something that no other species does." "What is that, my Emperor?" asked Commander Vex. "They adopt their enemies." The commanders looked at each other in confusion. They did not understand. How could anyone adopt an enemy? Enemies were to be destroyed, enslaved, or conquered. That was the way of the galaxy. Far across the galaxy, on a station built from the wreckage of 100 conquered ships, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before her own council. But this council was different from the Zareth High Command. Very different indeed. Beside her stood a Koreth warrior named Grix. His scales were deep green, and acid dripped from special glands on his arms. Once, his people had fought humanity in a bitter war. Now he wore the uniform of the United Earth Fleet. Next to Grix sat a Mentari named Whisper. Her pale blue skin shimmered with psychic energy. Her people had tried to enslave human minds when they first made contact. They had failed, and in their failure they had found unexpected friends. And there were others. The crystalline form of a Crystori named Shard gleamed under the station lights. 3 representatives of the insectoid hive collective clicked and buzzed in their special chairs. A massive Grondar named Stone sat quietly, his rock-like skin rough and gray. "The Zareth are coming," Admiral Chen said. "Their fleet will reach the outer colonies in 3 standard months. They have never been defeated. They have never shown mercy. They have enslaved or destroyed every species they have encountered." "Then we are dead," buzzed the hive representative. "Our calculations show no possibility of victory. Their forces outnumber ours 100 to 1. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a happy smile, but there was something in it that made the others lean forward. "The Zareth have made a mistake," she said. "They think they are coming to conquer a single species. They think they will face only human ships and human soldiers. They are wrong." She pressed a button and a holographic map appeared above the table. It showed not just human space but all the territories of the United Coalition. The worlds of the Korath, the Mentari homeworld, the asteroid colonies of the Crystori, the hive worlds of the Collective, the mountain planets of the Grondar, and more, so many more. 87 species, Admiral Chen said. 87 species that humanity has fought, befriended, and united. 87 species that the Zareth knows nothing about. They have studied human ships, human weapons, human tactics, but they have not studied us. Grix stood, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "My people remember the war with humanity. We killed millions of their kind. They killed millions of ours. And when the war was over, they offered us their hand. They helped us rebuild our worlds. They shared their technology. They called us friends." Whisper's psychic voice touched everyone's minds at once. "When we tried to enslave them, they fought back with minds so chaotic and strong that our elders went mad from the contact. We thought they would destroy us. Instead, they offered peace. They asked us to teach them about the mind, and in return, they taught us about the heart." Stone rumbled, his voice like boulders rolling down a mountain. "My people lived in caves for 10,000 years. Humans found us. They did not see savages, they saw potential. They gave us ships and stars and purpose. Admiral Chen looked around the table at these aliens, these former enemies, these friends. The Zareth Empire has never faced anything like us. They conquer by division. They keep their slaves separate and afraid. They think that is strength, but we know better. She stood straighter, her voice rising. We are not 87 weak species. We are one force made of 87 strengths. The Korath give us warriors who feel no pain. The Mentari give us minds that can break any barrier. The Christori can survive where no ship can fly. The collective thinks as one. The Grandar cannot be moved by any force. And the humans, asked Shard, his crystalline voice like wind chimes. What do humans give? Admiral Chen's smile grew wider. Humans give madness. We give the willingness to try things that should not work. We give stubbornness that refuses to die. We give the strange ability to look at an enemy and see a friend. And above all, we give hope. The war room was silent for a moment. Then Grix began to laugh, a harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. The hive representatives clicked in what might have been approval. Stone nodded slowly. Tell us your plan, Admiral, Whisper said. Tell us how we will make the Zareth Empire tremble. And Admiral Chen began to explain. The Zareth invasion fleet arrived at the human colony world of New Hope exactly on schedule. Their ships filled the sky like a metal cloud, blocking out the stars. On the ground, the colonists watched and waited. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. He looked at the small planet below with contempt. It had only 3 million inhabitants. His fleet could sterilize the entire surface in less than an hour. Broadcast the standard message, he ordered. Surrender or die. The communications officer obeyed. The message went out on all frequencies. They waited for the humans to respond with their usual defiance. Humans were known for making brave speeches before they died. But the response was not what they expected. Surrender accepted, came the reply. We await your ground forces. Please land at these coordinates. Commander Vex frowned. This was unusual. Humans did not surrender. They fought until the last one was dead. Every intelligence report said the same thing. It is a trap, said his second officer. Obviously, Vex replied. But what kind of trap can 3 million primitives set against my fleet? Send the ground forces, all of them. We will crush whatever resistance they have prepared. 10,000 Zareth soldiers landed on New Hope. They marched in perfect formation toward the colony's main city. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. They expected to find fortifications, defenders, some sign of the resistance they would destroy. Instead, they found empty streets, empty buildings. The entire population had vanished. Where are they? Demanded the ground commander. Scan for life signs. No life signs detected, sir. The city is completely empty. Before the ground commander could respond, the ground began to shake. The soldiers looked down in confusion as cracks appeared in the streets beneath their feet. Then the cracks widened and the Grandar emerged. Stone had led his people through tunnels that stretched beneath the entire continent. 300 Grandar warriors, each one standing 12 feet tall and weighing as much as a small vehicle. They had been waiting beneath the city for weeks, perfectly still, perfectly patient. Now they rose like mountains coming to life. The Zareth soldiers opened fire immediately. Their energy weapons struck Grandar's skin and did nothing. The Grandar were made of living rock. They could not be burned, melted, or broken by any hand weapon. The battle in the city lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, not a single Zareth soldier remained standing. The Grandar had lost no one. In orbit, Commander Vex watched the disaster unfold on his tactical display. Impossible, he whispered. What were those creatures? Our intelligence said nothing about rock monsters. Sir, his sensor officer said, we are detecting new contacts. Many new contacts. Vex looked at the display. Ships were appearing from behind the planet's moon, but they were not human ships. They did not match any design in the Zareth database. They were strange, organic-looking vessels covered in chitinous armor. The Hive Collective had arrived. The collective ships moved as one, their movements perfectly synchronized because they were controlled by a single vast intelligence. They did not wait for orders or hesitate in their actions. They swarmed the Zareth fleet like insects attacking a much larger prey. The Zareth ships were more powerful individually. Each one had stronger shields and bigger weapons, but the collective ships worked together in ways that no ordinary fleet could match. When a Zareth ship fired at one collective vessel, another would move into the weapon's path to block it. When a Zareth shield weakened, multiple collective ships would concentrate fire on that exact point. Commander Vex rallied his forces. Focus fire on their largest ship, destroy their command vessel, and the others will scatter. Sir, his tactical officer said slowly, they do not have a command vessel. Every ship is the command vessel. Every ship is controlled by the same mind. Before Vex could process this information, new alarms began to sound. Something was happening to his ship. Systems were failing all across the destroyer of worlds. Life support, weapons, navigation, everything was shutting down. What is happening? Vex demanded. Psychic attack, sir. Something is in our computers. Something is in our minds. The Mentari had joined the battle. Their ships carried no weapons at all. They did not need them. Each Mentari vessel held dozens of psychic warriors who could reach across the void of space and touch the minds of their enemies. They could not control Zareth minds directly. The Zareth had some natural resistance to mental powers, but they could create confusion, fear, and chaos. They could make officers forget their orders. They could make gunners target empty space. They could make engineers shut down the very systems that kept their ships alive. And while the Zareth fleet struggled against enemies it could not understand, the Koreth arrived. Koreth boarding pods slammed into Zareth hulls. The acid-blooded warriors cut through airlock doors like paper. They moved through the enemy ships in squads, their natural weapons leaving trails of dissolving metal and screaming soldiers. Grix led the assault on the destroyer of worlds personally. He found Commander Vex on the bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his guards. The Koreth warrior looked at the Zareth commander with something like pity. You thought you were coming to fight humans, Grix said. You were wrong. Vex raised his weapon, but his arm would not obey him. A Mentari somewhere was holding his limbs still with pure mental force. The humans defeated my people, Grix continued. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they gave us a choice. Join them or die alone. We chose to join. Now we fight together. Now we die together. And now you will surrender together. Commander Vex looked around at the ruined bridge of his flagship. Outside the viewport, his fleet was burning. The impossible was happening. He was being defeated by species that should have been easy prey. What are you? He whispered. We are the United Coalition, Grix said. We are humanity and all who stand with them, and this is just the beginning. Far away, on the Coalition station, Admiral Chen watched the reports come in. The first battle was over. The Zareth had lost 1,200 ships and 40,000 soldiers. The Coalition had lost less than 200 ships and perhaps 1,000 warriors. But she did not celebrate. This was just the first wave. The Empire had millions of ships. They would send more, many more. Prepare the second phase, she ordered. It is time to show them what else we can do. Emperor Thax received the news of the defeat at New Hope with complete stillness. His advisors expected rage. They expected demands for punishment. Instead, their emperor simply sat on his throne and thought. Tell me again, he said finally, what species were involved in this attack? His intelligence officer consulted her datapad. We have identified at least 5 distinct species, Great One. The rock creatures, the insectoid swarm, the mind-readers, the acid-blooded warriors, and of course, the humans themselves. But sensor records suggest there may have been others operating in support roles. And these species, Emperor Thax said slowly, they fought together, not as slaves or servants but as allies. Yes, Great One. Our analysts believe they were fully integrated. The tactical coordination was unlike anything we have seen before. The Emperor nodded. I warned you, I warned all of you. The humans adopt their enemies. They do not conquer and enslave. They absorb and unify. This is why they are dangerous. His military advisor stepped forward. Great One, with respect, this changes nothing. We lost one fleet. We have 100 more. We will simply send overwhelming force. And how many species have they unified? The Emperor asked. How many warriors fight under their banner? Do we even know? Silence, no one knew. Find out, the Emperor commanded. Before we commit more forces, I want to know exactly what we are facing. Every species, every world, every ship, every weapon. Leave nothing to chance. While the Zareth Empire gathered intelligence, the United Coalition was not idle. Admiral Chen had a plan, and it was unlike any strategy ever used in galactic warfare. We are going to talk to them, she announced at the next council meeting. The alien representatives stared at her in confusion. Talk to whom? Grix asked. The slave species, the conquered peoples of the Zareth Empire. Think about it. The Zareth have ruled thousands of species for 10,000 years. How many of those species want to be free? How many would rise up if they thought they had a chance? Whisper's mind voice touched the room. This is dangerous, Admiral. The Zareth punish rebellion with extinction. No species has dared to resist in centuries. Because no one offered them hope, Admiral Chen replied. No one showed them that the Zareth could be beaten, but we have. We won at New Hope. News of that victory is spreading through the Empire right now. Slaves are whispering about it. Soldiers are afraid. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone has stood against the Empire and survived. Stone rumbled thoughtfully. How will we reach these slave species? The Empire controls all communication. That is where our crystalline friends come in. Admiral Chen turned to Shard. Your people can survive in space without ships. You can travel where no one else can go. You can carry messages across the void. Shard's form brightened with inner light. We can. It will take time, but we can reach the slave worlds. What message do you want us to carry? Admiral Chen smiled. A simple one. Tell them they are not alone. Tell them help is coming. Tell them that when the time comes, we will fight together. Over the next 2 months, hundreds of Crystori messengers drifted through Zareth space. They were invisible to sensors, too small to be noticed, and utterly silent. They reached planet after planet, making contact with resistance movements that had hidden in the shadows for generations. On the mining world of Keyleth, the message reached a species of small, burrowing creatures called the Vrel. They had been slaves for 8,000 years, digging precious metals from deep underground. When they heard that someone had defeated a Zareth fleet, many of them did not believe it. It was impossible. The Zareth could not be beaten. But the Crystori messenger showed them recordings of the Battle of New Hope. They saw Zareth ships burning. They saw Zareth soldiers surrendering. And for the first time in 8,000 years, the Vrel began to hope. On the factory world of Tauren, the message reached a species of large, six-limbed beings called the Mech. They built warships for the Empire, forced to construct the very weapons that kept them enslaved. The Crystori offered them a different future. If they would sabotage the ships they built, the Coalition would come for them. They would be free. On 100 other worlds, the same scene played out. Species that had given up hope began to dream of freedom. They began to prepare. They began to wait. Back in Zareth space, Emperor Thax finally received his intelligence report. His face grew pale as he read it. 87 species, he said. The humans have united 87 different species into a single fighting force, and according to this report, they are still growing. Former enemies, species that should hate each other, all fighting together under human leadership. His military advisor tried to sound confident. Great One, even with 87 species, they cannot match our numbers. The Empire controls 10 times that many worlds. We have 10 times the ships, 10 times the soldiers. Those are slave species, the Emperor replied quietly. They fight for us because they fear us. What happens if they stop being afraid? What happens if they begin to hope? They would never dare. They are already daring. The Emperor's voice rose to a shout. Do you think I do not know about the messages spreading through our slave worlds? Do you think I am blind to the whispers in the mines and factories? The humans are doing something far more dangerous than building an army. They are spreading an idea. They are telling our slaves that freedom is possible. He stood from his throne and walked to the great window that overlooked his capital city. Below, millions of Zareth citizens went about their daily lives, unaware of the threat that was growing in the darkness between stars. We must strike now, the Emperor decided. Before this infection spreads further, assemble the Grand Fleet, every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. We will not make the mistake of underestimating them again. We will crush them completely. And the slave worlds, Great One, what if they rebel while our forces are away? The Emperor's face hardened. If any world rebels, destroy it. Make an example that will silence all the others. Show them that hope leads only to death. The order went out. The Grand Fleet of the Zareth Empire began to assemble. It would take 3 months to gather all their forces. 3 months to bring together the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. 3 months during which the seeds of rebellion would continue to spread. The Grand Fleet of the Zareth Empire numbered 50,000 warships. It was the largest fighting force ever assembled in galactic history. Enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. Enough soldiers to conquer 1,000 worlds. Emperor Thax himself commanded the fleet from his personal flagship, the Eternal Throne. He would accept nothing less than total victory. The humans and their coalition of freaks would be erased from the galaxy. Their example would be forgotten. Order would be restored. The coalition fleet has gathered at the Nexus system, his tactical officer reported. Approximately 12,000 ships of various designs. The Emperor allowed himself a small smile. 4-to-1 odds. Even with their tricks, they cannot survive this. The Grand Fleet jumped to the Nexus system. They emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, ready for battle. The coalition fleet was waiting for them, arranged in a defensive pattern around a large space station. All ships attack Pattern Alpha, the Emperor commanded. Destroy them. 50,000 Zareth warships surged forward. The coalition fleet did not retreat. It held its position and opened fire. The battle was massive beyond comprehension. Thousands of ships exchanged fire across millions of kilometers. Energy beams crisscrossed the void. Missiles streaked toward their targets. Entire squadrons died in seconds. But the coalition was not just fighting, they were waiting. Admiral, said the Hive representative on the coalition flagship, the Zareth fleet is fully engaged. They have committed all their reserves. Admiral Chen nodded. Send the signal. Across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, that signal was received. And then the true plan revealed itself. On Keyleth, the Vrel burst from their minds. Thousands of them, armed with tools and improvised weapons, attacked their Zareth overseers. The guards were few, most having been called away to join the Grand Fleet. The Vrel swarmed over them like a rising tide. On Tauren, the mech stopped building ships and started destroying them. Sabotage devices planted over months activated all at once. Half-finished warships exploded in their docks. Weapon factories burned. Fuel depots erupted in massive fireballs. On world after world, slave species rose up against their masters. Some had weapons. Some had only their claws, their teeth, their acid blood, their sheer weight of numbers. But all of them had something they had never had before: hope. Emperor Thax received the reports in the middle of the battle. His face went white. "Rebellion on 47 worlds," his communications officer said, voice shaking. 60 worlds, 80. The number keeps growing." "Impossible," the Emperor whispered. "They cannot all be rebelling at once. This is coordinated. This was planned." "Sire, the humans, they must have." "I know what they did." The Emperor slammed his fist against his command chair. "They turned our own empire against us. They spread their poison to every corner of our domain, and we fell for it. We gathered our entire military might in one place, leaving our worlds undefended." He stood and faced his tactical display. The coalition fleet was still fighting, still holding, still dying. But now he understood. They were not trying to win the battle. They were only trying to keep the Grand Fleet busy while the real war happened elsewhere. "Recall the fleet," the Emperor ordered. "We must return to crush these rebellions before they spread further." "Sire, if we withdraw now, we will be vulnerable. The coalition will." "The coalition cannot follow us. They do not have the ships, but if we do not stop these rebellions, we will lose everything. Do it." The Grand Fleet began to withdraw. Thousands of Zareth ships broke off from the battle and jumped to faster than light. The coalition did not pursue. They could not have pursued even if they wanted to. They had already sacrificed so much. Admiral Chen looked at the casualty reports. 3,000 coalition ships destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of lives lost. Koreth, Mentari, Christori, Hive, Grandar, Human. All dead, all sacrificed for this moment. "Did it work?" Grix asked, his green scales dulled with exhaustion and grief. He had lost many warriors today, many friends. "Yes," Admiral Chen said quietly. "It worked. The Empire is burning. They will spend months putting out the fires we started. And while they do that, we will rebuild. We will grow stronger. And when we meet them again, we will be ready." The Zareth Grand Fleet returned to find chaos. Rebellions on 214 worlds. Critical supply chains disrupted. Entire sectors falling out of their control. It took them 6 months to restore order, and even then, the order was fragile. The slave species had tasted freedom. They had seen that the Zareth could be hurt, could be challenged, could be made to bleed. And though many of the rebellions had been crushed, the idea lived on. In hidden places, in whispered conversations, in the hearts of billions of beings across the galaxy. Hope could not be killed so easily. Meanwhile, the United Coalition was not idle. Every species that escaped the failed rebellions was welcomed. Every ship that could be salvaged was repaired. Every lesson from the battle was studied. And new species came to join them. Word had spread throughout the galaxy. There was a force that stood against the Zareth Empire. There was a place where different species could live as equals. There was a coalition that would fight for anyone who asked for help. By the time the Empire was ready to strike again, the coalition had grown to 143 species. They had recovered their losses and then some. They had built new ships and trained new soldiers. They had prepared defenses and laid traps. Emperor Thax looked at the reports from his spy network and felt something he had never felt before: fear. "They are not supposed to grow stronger," he said to his advisors. "When we defeat an enemy, they get weaker. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked." "The humans do not follow our rules, Great One," his intelligence chief said. "They turn enemies into allies. They turn defeat into determination. They turn diversity into strength." "Then we must find a way to break them," the Emperor replied. "We must find their weakness and exploit it." "We have tried, Great One. They have no weakness. Or rather, their weakness is also their strength. They care about each other. All of them, all species, as if they were family. We cannot use hostages against them because they will always try to rescue their own. We cannot spread distrust because they always choose to trust. We cannot divide them because they refuse to be divided. The Emperor sat in silence for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice tired and old. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time to try something we have never tried before." His advisors waited. "Perhaps it is time to talk." The message arrived at Coalition headquarters 3 days later. It was simple. The Zareth Empire proposed a meeting. No weapons, no tricks, just talks between leaders who wished to end the war. The council debated for hours. Many suspected a trap. The Zareth had never negotiated before. They did not know the meaning of peace. Their history was written in the blood of conquered species. But Admiral Chen argued for acceptance. "If there is even a small chance to end this war without more death, we must take it," she said. "That is what makes us different from them. We fight when we must, but we always prefer peace." The meeting was arranged on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Emperor Thax came with a small escort. Admiral Chen brought representatives of every species in the coalition. When the two groups faced each other across the negotiating table, the contrast was striking. On one side, Zareth officers in matching uniforms, standing in perfect formation, their faces showing nothing but cold discipline. On the other side, a wild variety of shapes and colors. The rock-solid form of stone, the gleaming crystal of shard, the green scales of Grix, the chitinous bodies of the hive representatives, the shimmering blue of Whisper, and dozens of others, each unique, each different, yet all standing together. Emperor Thax looked at them for a long moment. "I have conquered 1,000 species," he said finally. "I have studied 1,000 more, but I have never seen anything like you. How do you do it? How do you make so many different kinds work together?" Admiral Chen considered the question seriously. "It is not easy," she admitted. "We argue, we disagree. Sometimes we make terrible mistakes, but we keep trying because we believe that together we are stronger than apart. We believe that every species has something valuable to offer, and we believe that the universe is big enough for all of us." "Your beliefs are dangerous," the Emperor said. "To empires, yes, to those who rule by fear and division, but to everyone else our beliefs offer something precious. Hope, community, a chance to be more than slaves or masters." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. His advisors shifted nervously. They had never seen him like this. Uncertain, thoughtful, almost vulnerable. "I could continue this war," he said at last. "I still have more ships than you, more soldiers, more resources. Perhaps I would win in the end. Perhaps I would destroy every last one of you." "Perhaps," Admiral Chen agreed. "But it would cost you everything. Your empire would be ruined. Your people would suffer. And even if you won, you would spend 1,000 years trying to hold together what remained. The idea we represent cannot be killed by weapons. You cannot bomb hope out of existence." "So what do you propose?" the Emperor asked. Admiral Chen leaned forward. "Join us." The Zareth advisors gasped. The Emperor's eyes widened. "We do not want to destroy your people," Admiral Chen continued. "We want to free them, all of them, including the Zareth themselves. Your empire has trapped you as surely as it trapped your slaves. You have known nothing but war and conquest for 10,000 years. That is not a life. That is a prison." She gestured to the coalition representatives behind her. "Look at us. We were enemies once. Many of us killed each other, but we found a better way. We learned that different does not mean lesser. We learned that strength comes from cooperation, not domination." "You ask me to give up my empire," the Emperor said. "I ask you to gain something better, a place in a community that spans the galaxy, a chance to be remembered not as a conqueror, but as a leader who brought peace, a future where your children do not have to spend their lives fighting and dying for nothing." Emperor Thax sat back in his chair. For the first time in his life, he did not know what to do. His entire existence had been built on one simple principle: the strong rule and the weak obey. But these humans and their allies were showing him a different truth. The strong could also lift up. The weak could become partners. And together, they could build something that no single empire could ever achieve. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. There were setbacks and arguments and moments when it seemed everything would collapse, but in the end, an agreement was reached. The Zareth Empire would release all its slave species. Those who wished to join the coalition could do so freely. Those who wished to form their own nations would be given that right. The Zareth themselves would become one voice among many, no longer rulers but partners. In exchange, the coalition would share its technology, its knowledge, and its protection with all members equally. No species would be above any other. All would work together for the common good. It was not a perfect peace. Some Zareth refused to accept the new order and had to be dealt with. Some former slave species struggled to forgive centuries of oppression. Old hatreds died slowly. But the coalition had never been about perfection. It had always been about progress, about trying, about believing that tomorrow could be better than today. 1 year after the peace treaty, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Unity Station. Below her, ships from hundreds of different species came and went. Zareth traders dealing with Koreth merchants, Mentari teachers instructing Vrel students, Crastori artists collaborating with mech engineers. Grix came to stand beside her. His scales were brighter now, the old scars of war fading. "The galaxy will never be the same," he said. "No," Admiral Chen agreed, "it will be better." "Do you really believe that, after everything, all the death and suffering?" Admiral Chen turned to face her old friend. "When humans first left Earth, we found a galaxy full of dangers, species that wanted to destroy us, threats we could barely imagine. Many thought we would not survive." She looked back out at the bustling station. "But instead of trying to conquer the galaxy like so many before us, we did something different. We made friends. We built bridges. We showed everyone we met that we were stronger together than apart. And look at what we built. Not an empire, something better. A family." Grix was silent for a moment. Then he laughed, that same harsh sound that had echoed through so many battlefields. "Humans," he said fondly, "you are the strangest species in the galaxy." "And proud of it," Admiral Chen replied with a grin. Far across the galaxy, on 100,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size were learning the same lesson that humanity had always known: that the strongest force in the universe was not weapons or ships or armies. It was the simple, stubborn belief that if you reached out your hand to an enemy, sometimes they would take it. And that when they did, they stopped being an enemy and became something infinitely more valuable. A friend. The Galactic Empire had trembled when humanity united the conquered races. But in the end, the Empire had not fallen. It had not been destroyed. Instead, it had been transformed into something new. Something that included everyone. Something that humanity, in all its stubborn, hopeful, impossible glory, had shown was possible. A galaxy at peace. And somewhere on a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system, children looked up at the stars and dreamed of the friends they would make among them. Not as conquerors, not as slaves, but as equals, as partners, as family. That was the human way. That was what made them special. Not their technology or their weapons or their ships, but their unshakable belief that no matter how different someone looked, no matter what history stood between them, they could always choose to be friends. And in the end, that belief had changed everything.